So I am Matthew, this is Declan, and we are part of FTC Team 24180, the Blue Bananas, and we will be talking to you about the engineering design process. So the engineering design process is a great tool to use for anything. There are many types and forms of these processes, but they usually have the same base idea. We highly encourage you to research and choose a process that works best for you, or create one of your own. This is the far right one is the one that FLL uses and is a one that first created. The one on the left here is ours that we created at the beginning of our first season, which is kind of basic. And this happened 2 years ago. But over the summer, we reviewed this engineering design process, and we made major updates to it.
This summer, we revised our engineering design process. In the new version, we added share, and we modified other steps to more clearly demonstrate the steps we take. In the following slides, we will go in depth of each step and how it relates to the technical and non-technical parts of FTC.
So the first step in our engineering design process is identify. Identify has, at least for us, is what we thought, was analyze, question, and define your goals. On the non-technical side of identify, some examples that we found include team identity, what members are doing, the goals and roles that those members want to do, the tools that you might need for the next season, and identifying what your outreach guidelines are. The technical side of this, some examples include identifying the game rules, identifying scoring, and what your goals and roles for the season are.
Actually, Matthew, I'm going to hold you up for just a second. We've seen how fast things are going, so I think you should ask questions or have discussions on each page.
Okay. So these are just some examples. Does anyone have any ideas for an extra point that we might be able to add? Anyone? Okay.
The second step in our engineering design process is imagine. In this step, you imagine how to accomplish goals and solve challenges. For the non-technical side, some examples include researching events, creating your own events, connecting with professionals, and seeing who you can help. For the technical side, some examples include game strategies, creating game strategies, robot features, and alliance strategies.
So the third step in our engineering design process is plan. In plan, you make timelines, you plan out your designs, and you plan out your resources that you're gonna have. For the technical side of this, some examples include scheduling. So for us, at the beginning of each season, or even before we actually learn about the season, we create a schedule up until at least qualifier 1, if not till state, about how we want our season to go. So if we're gonna have just one robot or have 2 different robots that we're gonna be working on. There's designing a robot, there's planning out what you need for your inventory of parts, and determining the funds that you need for the season. For non-technical side, some examples include how to raise the money that you need for your robot or the season, what kind of outreach events you might want to go for the next year, planning out when and where you want to visit with professionals, and planning out how to help others.
The fourth step in our engineering design process is create. In this step, you execute the plan. For the technical side, some examples include tracking tasks and timeline, ordering the parts, and building to the plan. For the non-technical side, some examples include fundraising, attending events, talking to professionals, and seeking mentors and helping others.
So attending events and some other things include the actual season, so going to qualifiers and going to state and stuff, which you could already be going back through this step once you get to state. But when you go to an event, you it's either an outreach event or some kind of technical event where you compete. And then building the plan is once you have a plan of your robot or design of your robot, you want to use the parts that you have and the parts that you've just recently got to make your robot for that season. The fifth step in our engineering design process is create. In create, hold on. Didn't click. There we go. In improve, you test, analyze, and make changes for the season. For non-technical, some examples includes analyzing what things have gone wrong or have gone better, and if there are any things that you can do better. For the technical side of this, some examples include testing and practicing for the upcoming events, or from the past events, making sure that you now understand what you need to do better in the next competition. Figuring out how to improve, and also implementing those improving changes onto your robot or onto your team.
The sixth step in our engineering design process is share. In this step, you share the journey. For the technical side, you create an engineering portfolio, add any additional documentation, and create a judging presentation. For the non-technical side, some examples include connecting with professionals and the community, and sharing your journey using social media. I would like to add that for judging, it is not about how good your robot is. It is about the journey that you took to get there.
So,
Well, I was gonna say real quick, there's some different people in here, you wanna tell them about the 2 books that you have up here?
yeah. So, we have 2 main books that we actually use during the season. We have our EP, which you give to the judges. And in here you have the 15 pages of all your information. And definitely in the strategy section, we have a part where you go over and use the engineering design process to always improvise our robot or our team based on how we did in the previous competition. And we also have our banana book, which you can call it pretty much whatever you want, but for us this includes most of all the things we have. So outreach things, strategy sheets, and a bunch of different sheets and designs that you can have, and also all your note taking for meetings can also go in this to show you won't turn this into judges, but you can show them the book that you have, and it can also boost up your scores for that competition if they actually kind of like how you do all the extra stuff. So to wrap this up, try to keep in mind that the engineering design process is a complete cycle. So once you get to the last step in your engineering design process, you can start again or skip to another step. This means that if you've created your thing, improvised it, and shared it to the community, you can still always use that robot or your team and improve in ways that you've seen that might want to be better for your liking. And one way we did this is that after every single competition or event, we would go over what went well and what didn't go well, and we would make sure that we could accomplish those things again or improve them if they didn't go too well.
Thank you for joining this discussion. Please ask any questions that you have about the engineering design process.
So I'll just add one thing they said and let them maybe follow up, but we did say that this process works. That you say the engineering process and everybody thinks, oh, that's for how to build the robot. But what to touch on what Matthew said, when it says that improving, even when we do an outreach event, part of that we plan for the event. We plan what are the materials we're gonna have to take, what are we gonna talk about, what are we gonna do. At the end of that event, the team gets back together and says, what worked? Oh, we forgot to bring electric cord. Well, guess what? Our plan includes a checklist. We go add electric cords to that checklist. So that on the next event, we've got electric cords. And so in our book, you'll find checklists. When we go to an event, we go through and check, what are we bringing, and what do we need? The judges actually look at that kind of stuff. So it can apply not just to robot. This is the whole picture. It applies to your not technical and non-technical.
How much time do you spend on each of these steps of your engineering design process?
So a lot of it depends. So the identify usually is like first around about week after you get the season. So you can make sure that you can build a robot or have a design that fits the rules and you know the rules, so you don't have something that's like completely against the rules or something. And then you have Imagine, which then is the following that week also, but then also the following week, and a few weeks after that to design what you're going to build and CAD it, which is what we like to do, which is CAD the entire robot before we start building like major functions, so we can make sure that it will get together correctly and it won't be a complete bust and we have to start over. Then you have planning, which is also that design step and making sure you have all the parts you need. Then you have create, which could also be pretty soon if you have enough parts. But if you don't have enough parts, once you get the parts that you need, you'll be able to create the design that you've created into real life on your robot. Then you also for create, once you have that robot, you can compete with that robot. And once you have that first competition, that's when improve starts to kick in, because then you can go, hey, this part of our robot didn't work as well as we thought it would, or this worked amazing, we need to keep this on a robot. So you use that improve state after your events to make sure you can do better in the next event. And then share is after you get done with competitions or even after the season, you can always share with a community or with big companies about what you've done.
So one thing though, you touched on this, Matthew, you know, how long would you say you planned for this event, for example?
Before the season.
Yeah, so that one's been in the works for 4 or 5 weeks, for example, just planning. The other thing is we always recommend, and then they put it together, but usually they pick key points of the season, for example, going to the first competition, right? And then they will work their timeline backwards and say, we've got to be at the competition by this time frame, or this is the date of the competition. You know, then they'll say, well, why don't you talk through how you kind of work backwards and what do you protect for in each one?
So to kind of get to make sure that we can get to the point in the end, we have to make sure that all our stuff is on time. And then, so we always try to make sure that we have plenty of time, so if we do go over time, we still have enough time to practice or code, and make sure have plenty of time to code, because you don't want to be coding the night before competition or at the competition even. You want to be coding at least for a full week to get all your stuff finalized. But for the timeline, at least, once you get to an event, for working backwards, you can look at, hey, we're behind on this, we might want to be able to push this forward for the next event, or be able to command that deadline even more so you don't get too late on the timeline.
Right, but maybe Declan, you didn't quite get what I was looking for. So we set a date of, this is the day we have to compete, and then what's the first step back of what we protect for? What do we do that week before we compete?
We gather we make sure that everything on our robot is complete, and we do many drive practices, and we Yeah, we make sure that we have all the resources necessary to go to the competition without.
And what do your mentors make you go through painfully, like every night before you go?
We have presentation practice every single night before, so you don't have to look at your script or something, you can just speak it fluently. Then also, just you keep working back until you hit that point of, hey, this is the last step that we really need. So you pretty much start with, right before the competition, presentation practice and drive practice. Then before that, you have software deadlines. Then before that, you have hardware deadlines. But then also during the hardware thing, you can also have subsections of, hey, we want the intake or whatever, or the output done by this time, and then also the chassis done by this time.
So when you ask how long it takes, a lot of times it's for folks that, the kids in here, we call it in my industry a right to left schedule, which means you have your finish line, you go figure out how much time you're gonna allocate to each section of your plan from the time you end to the time you just start. As opposed to a left to right schedule means that you just start from scratch and say, okay, I wanna take 2 weeks of this, 2 weeks of that, 3 weeks of that, and then next thing you know, that may not match up to where your finish line is. So they always plan right to left, which is what's my finish line, and they give their setbacks. And they have overlapping ones as well. So this year you guys why don't you explain what your plan is for this year and why you have kind of 2 overlapping schedules?
Yeah, so this year, we actually have 2 timelines as schedules, because instead of just doing one robot through the entire season and implementing changes to that, we're just trying to build a simple robot that can get us qualified to state, so we can build a more complex robot to compete and test during Qual 3, and then use it at state and maybe even higher events off season, so we can have a more complex and fancier looking robot that might compete a bit better than the just regular basic robot. Any other questions?
It's the idea with a more complex robot, is that you have more time, having a longer timeline on that, and maybe feeding in some things that you learn with the simple robot.
So with the simple robot, we're trying to implement as many things that we're hoping to see on the main complex robot into that one, so we can change different ideas and aspects of the more complex robot. And then also, last year we tried kind of doing the same thing, but we didn't start the complex robot at the beginning of the season. We actually started it after Qual 2, and we weren't able to finish it in time because of the time constraints with that robot and not being able to order parts and stuff. So we wanted to complete the design at the beginning of the season and make sure to work out all the rough edges of it close to the beginning, so we don't have to have that hard travel at the end and not be able to compete with that.
It also makes it easier for software to have a separate robot that you can use that's not being built for doing sensors and tracking with the April tags. So it's really useful to have a second robot.
Yep.
How does your practice schedule look through the week?
Yeah, so we since we're a community team, we just practice whenever we can fit a practice in. So we've been practicing on Wednesdays and Sundays, but depending on people's schedule, we can change it around, or if we're or especially if the entire team schedule doesn't line up, we'll have multiple small group sessions where it's only hardware sessions or software sessions, or these people are working on this subsystem for this small group, and then the next small group might be working on this subsystem throughout the whole week, so we can get in as much time as we can for practice with fitting everyone's schedules and how they want to practice for the team.
And we have small groups for the non-technical stuff too. Fortunately, your 2 presenters today are the software person and the hardware person, so we don't have our are people that are focused on outreach and things of that nature, but we'll have small group meetings for those types of folks as well, so.
How many folks are on your team?
We have 8 right now. So last season we had 6, I think, and then, 5.
7, I thought.
Yeah, that number. And then we got 2 new people. One person went away from the team, but we have 8 people now, and you always want to keep trying to get more people, so if someone ages out or leaves the team, you still have a good number of people, and you can also maintain your team. And whenever you have maintaining your team, which is actually a reward, which is a sustain award, you want to maintain your team is pretty much is what that role is saying, and introduce new people. Helps you a lot in the judging, and then also it can look good and also kind of fun to get new members and teach them how to compete in the robotics and do different aspects.
And as the mentors, it doesn't seem like a lot, but that's 6 to 8, 7 to 8. We're working this year on how to keep everybody busy, right? Which we want to still have the kids have exposure to every aspect of the process. So they will have exposure, but we have leads for all the different sections. And so those leads might be like, for example, neither one of these guys are the lead for the EP. We had one person last year who developed the format and the look of the EP, but then the leads created a page that went into that EP, if that makes sense. So you can have if you have an artistic person that wants to come up with the cool backgrounds, whatever it is, great job for an artistic person to work on who may not be that interested in trying to code something. So, but we, and it's everybody wants to build the robot. Not that many people want to code the robot, but we do try to get some exposure on everybody in there. So I think that's important. And the same thing too when it comes to your judging sessions. Everybody that goes to the judging session, I think that's something new this year, is not everybody has to go into the judging session, because I think they changed it where now it's not, there used to be a 15-person limit on the FTC teams, now I think it's unlimited. And so not every person has to go into judging. I think it's highly encouraged, but if you are there, you really need to be involved. If you can't get a speaking point, like maybe you got 12 people and you only got 5 minutes to speak, but you try to have, okay, if they're gonna speak, then these might be our main question answers, or you might have I hate to use the term, it may sound bad, the Vanna White, right? She's up there he or she is showing off the robot while somebody else is talking about it. So always be engaged. So if you're in the room, plan on being involved in the presentation. And we always make a point, years ago when they were at FLL, we made a point of you couldn't speak unless you held the little banana man. We had a little yellow banana man Lego, and that was to help, because you have kids of different levels of who want to speak up and who doesn't. And we even got to the points like give the banana to them and make them give an answer, right? Because a lot of the kids, you may be quiet and shy, but you guys know what's going on, right? But so your teammates can help you by saying, Declan, why don't you tell them about this, right? Let Declan talk about it, so we don't have just one person talking about everything. So try to share that, show that cross knowledge. So.
I would like to add about the team size and everybody being able to do what they want for, like, for example, hardware this year, because we have 2 separate robots. Half of our team is working on the starter robot, and the other half is working on the next robot. And because it's really hard to have everybody with their hands on one robot and working on it, and we're also dividing it into subgroups, and like one person works on the storage of the artifacts, and another works on the actual shooting mechanism.
And can't stress enough, stick to your timelines. Don't put the pain into your software. Always loses, right? So don't put the pain into your software person. Like Matthew said, last year they had this came with this grand idea for a new robot, but they started halfway through the season rather than the beginning. But we made them do it, and congratulations to them to sticking to it. They said that at this date, if we hadn't hit this progress point, we're gonna stop and we're gonna go back and just make some minor mods to our main robot and go with that one. And even though a lot of the kids really wanted to do that newer robot, when we hit that deadline, that's it. Then they all had that agreement. So same thing, it's like, oh, I want to do just this one more mechanism on the robot. Nope, you had a deadline, especially early in the season, give it to your software guys and let them get their first part of the hack at it. And maybe on the next one, you can get your next mechanism in there. So don't stick to your deadlines. It'll make you overall as a team work better. And that's your robot, that's your presentations, that's your outreach, that's everything. Use your schedules and your deadlines and stick to them. So, they do have their EP and banana book if you guys want to see it. After this, we'll probably just move it back to our table if anybody wants to take a look at it.
Well, okay, since there's no more questions, I think that's it. You can do whatever you want. You can go back to your pit or do something else.